The morning sun of New Laram cast long shadows across the trading post's weathered exterior as Tom Sloan stepped outside his coffee, steaming in the crisp air. The frontier planet's harsh beauty spread before him. Red rock formations jutting from barren soil, twisted metal trees that had adapted to the high radiation levels, and a sky that shifted between purple and orange as the twin suns rose. It was home now, though. He still felt like an exile from the civilized worlds. Tom had been a border patrol officer, once keeping peace, in the outer systems where the Galactic Council's reach grew thin. That was before he'd seen too much corruption, too many innocent worlds, sacrificed to bureaucratic convenience. Now he ran this small trading post with Sarah Gallagher, exchanging goods with the scattered settlements that dotted New Laram's surface. It wasn't much, but it was honest work, and it was free from the Council's meddling. The sound of approaching vehicles broke through his morning routine. A convoy of sleek silver transports crested the nearest hill, their anti-grav engines humming with barely contained power. Council vehicles. Tom's hand instinctively moved to the blaster at his hip, then forced himself to relax. Whatever they wanted shooting first wasn't going to help. Sarah emerged from the trading post, her former marine instincts evident in her alert posture. "Trouble?" she asked quietly. "Looks like it," Tom replied. "Get Reed and Catherine on the comm. If this goes sideways, I want them ready." The lead transport settled onto the packed dirt outside the trading post, kicking up a cloud of dust that glittered with metallic particles. A delegation of council officials emerged, their crisp uniforms and polished decorations, a stark contrast to the frontier setting. At their head walked a man Tom recognized from news broadcasts, Milo Vexner, the council's senior diplomatic envoy. "Tom Sloan," Milo called out, his smile practiced and cold. "I must say you've chosen quite the remote location for retirement." "It suits me," Tom replied evenly. "What brings the council to our little corner of nothing?" "Opportunity," Milo said, gesturing for his aide to bring forward a sealed document case. "We've come to offer the people of New Laram something remarkable, a chance to join the galactic community proper with all the benefits that entails." Tom felt Sarah tense beside him. They'd both heard this pitch before on other worlds. It never ended well for the locals. "And what exactly would this entail?" he asked. "A peace treaty," Milo announced, as if revealing a precious gift. "Full council protection, trade agreements, technological exchange. Your people would never want for anything again." "At what cost?" Milo's smile widened. "Oh, the usual arrangements. Administrative oversight to ensure smooth integration, a council garrison for protection, cultural exchange programs, really nothing too burdensome." Tom knew better than to trust that smile. He'd seen what council protection meant. "I'd like to review the terms before we discuss this further." "Of course," Milo agreed readily. "In fact, I've scheduled a gathering this evening. All the settlement leaders will be there. We believe in transparency, after all." As the council delegation withdrew to their temporary camp, Tom and Sarah retreated inside the trading post. Reed Donovan, a grizzled ex-Marine, was already waiting with Catherine Mackenzie, whose medical expertise had saved more than a few lives in their small community. "Bad news," Reed asked, his scarred hands working a maintenance tool over his rifle. "The worst kind," Tom confirmed. "Council wants to offer us a peace treaty." Catherine frowned. "That's unexpected. They've ignored us for years. Why now?" Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing New Laram's planetary surveys. "Look at this. We've been mapping mineral deposits for trade purposes. If the council's finally noticed, then they want what we've got," Tom finished. "And they're willing to gift wrap their occupation." That evening, the community center buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of settlements had made the journey to hear the council's proposal. Tom noticed how many council officials were in attendance, their weapons supposedly ceremonial but clearly functional. Milo took the stage with theatrical flair, his diplomatic uniform gleaming under the improvised lighting. "Citizens of New Laram," he began. "Tonight marks a new chapter in your history. The Galactic Council extends its hand in friendship, offering you a place among the civilized worlds. He activated a holographic display showing sprawling cities, advanced technology, and smiling citizens in council uniforms. Imagine your children attending the finest schools in the galaxy. Picture your settlements transformed into modern cities. Envision a future where want and danger are things of the past. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some sounded interested, even hopeful. Tom felt his heart sink. It was always easier to seduce than to conquer. The terms are generous. Milo continued, producing the ornate treaty document. Council protection extends to all citizens. Trade rights are fully guaranteed. Cultural autonomy is respected within reasonable bounds. What about our right to govern ourselves? Tom called out, rising from his seat. Milo's smile never wavered. Self-governance is certainly an admirable goal, but surely you understand that proper integration requires certain administrative frameworks. Nothing too intrusive, just enough oversight to ensure smooth operation within council standards. Oversight, Sarah repeated, standing beside Tom. Like the oversight on Kepler 7? Or the cultural preservation efforts on New Byzantium? A hush fell over the crowd. Everyone knew those stories. Kepler 7 had been stripped of its resources within a decade of joining the council. New Byzantium's unique culture had been standardized out of existence. Those are unfortunate exceptions, Milo said smoothly. Each world's situation is unique. New Laram's integration will be handled with the utmost care. Dr. Catherine Mackenzie stood, her voice cutting through the tension. And what about our medical autonomy? Will our hospitals be subject to council health protocols? Will our doctors need council certification to practice? All professionals will have opportunities for advancement within council systems, Milo replied. It's really a wonderful opportunity for cultural and professional growth. Tom felt the room's mood shifting. Fear was replacing curiosity. He made his decision. I'd like to examine the treaty more closely, Tom announced. With your permission, of course. Milo's eyes glittered with satisfaction. Naturally, transparency is paramount. Tom walked to the stage, Sarah flanking him. Reed and Dr. Mackenzie moved to positions that blocked the exits. Their movement subtle but deliberate. Tom picked up the treaty document, its weight surprising in his hands. He began to read aloud. Article 7, all strategic resources shall be subject to council oversight and extraction quotas. He looked up. That's our mining rights, folks. Continuing, his voice grew harder. Article 12, local governance structures shall be dissolved and replaced with council-appointed administrators within 6 months of ratification. The crowd grew restless, angry murmurs building. Tom pressed on. Article 15, cultural practices deemed incompatible with council standards shall be discontinued. All education shall follow standard council curricula. Those are merely formalities. Milo interjected, his composure cracking slightly. The practical implementation. Article 21. Tom interrupted, his voice now ringing through the hall. Military-age citizens may be conscripted for council service as deemed necessary. Refusal shall constitute treason against the Galactic Order. The room erupted in angry shouts. Settlement leaders rose to their feet, their faces flushed with outrage. Council officials reached for their weapons, their diplomatic veneer abandoned. Tom held the treaty high above his head. This isn't a peace treaty, he declared. It's a surrender document, a license for the council to strip our world bare and enslave our people. You're making a grave mistake, Milo warned, his hand resting on his sidearm. The council protects its friends, but it remembers its enemies. Tom looked at the faces around him, his neighbors, his friends, the people who'd chosen this harsh world because it offered something the core worlds had forgotten: freedom. With deliberate slowness, Tom gripped the treaty with both hands. The ornate parchment was tougher than expected, but he felt it begin to yield. The answer, he said clearly, is no. He tore the document in half. The effect was instantaneous. Council guards drew their weapons, but found themselves facing an armed citizenry that had survived on a frontier world for good reason. Sarah's rifle was already trained on Milo before his bodyguard could clear his holster. "You've just declared war on the Galactic Council." Milo hissed, his diplomatic mask completely fallen away. "No," Tom replied calmly. "I've just declared independence. There's a difference." For a moment, the two forces faced each other in tense silence. Then Milo gave a sharp nod, and his forces began backing toward the exits. "You have 48 hours to reconsider," Milo announced. "After that, we'll return to collect what the council is owed, with or without your cooperation." As the council delegation withdrew, the community center buzzed with nervous energy. Settlement leaders surrounded Tom, their voices overlapping with questions, fears, and anger. "Can we really do this?" asked Maria Santos, who ran the agricultural cooperative. "Do we have a choice?" Reed countered. "You saw the treaty. They're not coming to liberate us, they're coming to strip mine our world." Dr. Mackenzie pushed through the crowd. "Tom, they'll be back with a full battle group. We can't fight the council's military." "We don't fight them head on," Sarah interjected. "This is our world. We know every canyon, every cave system, every radiation storm pattern. They don't." Tom climbed onto a chair, raising his voice above the din. "Listen to me. What we do in the next 2 days will determine the future of New Laram. We can fight or we can surrender, but if we fight together." Over the next 24 hours, the planet transformed. Messages streamed between settlements carrying plans and promises. Weapons caches were opened, revealing the frontier colonists considerable firepower. Dr. Mackenzie's medical stations prepared for casualties. Reed organized supply lines and ammunition distribution. The plan that emerged was audacious in its simplicity. The council expected a negotiation or a quick surrender. Instead, they would find a planet ready for war. When the council fleet returned, it was impressive indeed. 6 heavy cruisers and their escorts took position around New Laram, their weapons trained on major settlements. Milo's voice broadcast across all channels. "People of New Laram, this is your final warning. Surrender now and face only administrative integration. Continue this foolish resistance and face the consequences." Tom stood in the trading post's communication room, Sarah and his core team around him. The reply he broadcast was heard across the planet. "Milo, this is Tom Sloan. We've had our debate. We've made our choice. New Laram remains free." "So be it," came the cold reply. The first bombardment was surgical, targeting communication relays and power stations. But the colonists had prepared for this. Backup systems activated seamlessly, while hidden transmitters maintained coordination between settlements. When council shuttles launched their ground assault, they found empty settlements and booby-trapped buildings. The real defense had withdrawn to prepared positions in the Badlands, where New Laram's harsh environment became their ally. The first engagement came at dawn on the second day. Council troops, resplendent in powered armor, advanced through Razor Canyon toward the northern settlements. They walked into a carefully prepared killing field. The battle was brief but decisive. Concentrated fire from hidden positions destroyed several squads before they could react. When they tried to retreat, carefully placed explosives sealed the canyon behind them. Of the 100 soldiers who entered the canyon, only a handful escaped. The pattern repeated across the planet. Council forces designed for conventional warfare struggled against guerrilla tactics in hostile terrain. Their technology was superior, but their knowledge of the terrain was non-existent. Dr. Mackenzie's field hospitals became crucial centers of resistance, treating wounded fighters and coordinating supply drops. Reed's tactical expertise, honed in dozens of border conflicts, proved invaluable in planning ambushes and supply raids. As days turned into weeks, the stalemate became unsustainable for the council. Their forces were being bled white by a population that seemed to know their every move. Milo's confident predictions of quick victory gave way to increasingly desperate demands for reinforcements. The turning point came when settlements from nearby systems began sending aid. The Council's heavy-handed response to New Laram's resistance had been broadcast across the frontier worlds, sparking sympathy and support. Volunteer fighters arrived daily bringing weapons and crucial intelligence about Council troop movements. Tom stood on a ridge overlooking the main Council staging area, watching through high-powered scopes as shuttles loaded with wounded soldiers departed for orbit. Sarah joined him, her armor dusty from the latest skirmish. "They're pulling back to defensive positions," she reported. "Word from Reed is that they've stopped patrolling beyond their perimeter." And from orbit? Dr. Mackenzie's tapped into their medical channels. "Casualty reports are higher than they're admitting. Morale is cracking." Tom nodded slowly. Then it's time for the final push. The coordinated attack came at dawn with every able-bodied colonist participating. Simultaneous assaults on Council positions forced them to choose between abandoning key installations or spreading their forces too thin to defend everything. The final battle took place at the Council's main base, a hastily fortified position near the original landing site. Tom led the central assault, while Sarah and Reed commanded flanking forces that sealed the escape routes. It was brutal, desperate fighting. Council soldiers, cornered and facing defeat, fought with the fury of the desperate. But they were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and fighting on ground chosen by their enemies. Milo made his last stand in the command bunker, flanked by his remaining bodyguards. When Tom and his team breached the final defenses, they found the once polished diplomat disheveled and panicked. "This isn't over," Milo snarled. "The Council will return with a full fleet. You've just assured your planet's destruction." Tom regarded him calmly. "Maybe, but we'll face it as free people. That's more than you can say." The surrender came at sunset. Council forces, or what remained of them, laid down their weapons and prepared for evacuation. The fleet in orbit, crippled by supply shortages and defections, could only watch as their ground forces were defeated. In the aftermath, as the Council's battered remnants departed, Tom walked through the settlement. The cost had been high, too. Many good people had paid the ultimate price for freedom. But they had proven something important. Tyranny could be resisted even when it came dressed as salvation. Dr. Mackenzie found him by the memorial they were building for the fallen. "Reed wants to know about the prisoners," she said. "The Council officers." Tom sighed. "Let them go, all of them. We're not conquerors." "And when they return?" Tom looked up at the stars where Council ships were preparing to jump to hyperspace. "We'll be ready. We've learned something about ourselves these past weeks. We're stronger than we knew." Sarah approached a communication unit in her hands. "Tom, you need to hear this. It's from the Outer Systems Kepler 7, New Byzantium Titan's Rest." Tom took the unit, listening to a chorus of voices. Worlds that had been integrated into the Council were stirring. Reports of uprisings, declarations of independence, fleets defecting to join the resistance. "It seems," Sarah observed with a tired smile, "that we've started something." Months later, as the Galactic Council fractured and a new confederation of free worlds emerged from the chaos, Tom often returned to that moment in the community center. The decision to tear up the treaty had been instinctive, driven by moral certainty rather than strategic calculation. But it had been the right choice. Freedom, he'd learned, wasn't something that could be negotiated or granted by others. It had to be claimed, defended, and paid for in blood and sacrifice. The trading post continued to operate, though it now served as an unofficial embassy for the growing resistance. Tom and Sarah, along with Reed and Dr. Mackenzie, had become reluctant leaders in a movement that stretched across the galaxy. They had thought the Council was bluffing when they presented their generous treaty. They had been wrong about that. But the Council had made an even greater mistake. They had thought the frontier worlds would submit without a fight. The torn pieces of the treaty still hung in Tom's office, a reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of rebellion started with the simplest gestures. A document torn in half, a people who refused to bend, and a declaration that rang across the stars: "We are free and we will remain so." The war wasn't over. The Council would regroup, adapt, return with new strategies and greater force. But they would find something fundamentally changed. They would face not scattered settlements clinging to survival, but united worlds that had remembered what it meant to be free. Tom Sloan, former Border Patrol officer turned reluctant revolutionary, stood at the window of his trading post and watched New Laram's twin suns set behind the mountains. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new battles to fight. But tonight, they were free. And he had learned that sometimes that was enough.